Welcome to the Grizzled Warmaster. My name is Doug, and today we're going to look at the community articles and the Stormcast Eternals previews we have received so far. And there's been quite a few. We're actually getting a trickle of information about 3rd edition and about the various armies within Age of Sigmar. So far, it is focused on Stormcast Eternals. I'm sure at some point as we get closer to launch, we're going to learn more about the Cruel Boys. But let's go ahead and dive into what we've learned so far about the Stormcast. First off, we know they're getting a new allegiance ability called Blaze of Glory. Basically, when a Stormcast Eternal model is slain within 1 inch of an enemy unit, you're going to roll 1 die per wound of the slain model, of the model slain. So again, with the quick rolling rules, I'm assuming that if multiple people died in the same combat phase, you would roll them all together. You're going to add 1 to the number of dice rolled if the slain model has the Thunderstrike keyword, and then for each 6 you roll, target enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound at the end of the phase, so it's not going to stop them from fighting. So if you're engaged with 2 enemy units, you can't pick the one that hasn't fought yet, deal them a bunch of mortal wounds, and then prevent them from fighting. That it won't work that way because it comes at the end of the fight phase, or theoretically the end of the shoot phase. It doesn't say that it's in any particular phase. So if they're engaged with an enemy unit within 1 inch, if they're killed in the hero phase by mortal wounds or through spells, if they're killed in the shooting phase, if they're killed in the fight phase, it doesn't matter. As long as they're within 1 inch of an enemy, they're basically, as they get sucked back up into Azir, they're hitting them with the lightning that's pulling them back and doing mortal wounds. So here's an example. If one of the new Annihilators, who has 3 wounds, is slain, you would roll 4d6 dice. 3 for the 3 wounds that each of those models has, plus 1 because they have the Thunderstrike keyword, and if any of those D6, any of those 4d6 come up as a 6, you would deal a mortal wound. So it's a cool ability. I'm not real fond of abilities that require you to be slain to use them, but I do like the thematic elements of it, and it will make your opponent be careful about who they engage with what. So they, a monster that's almost dead, they may not throw into a bunch of units that, or a unit that they think they're going to slay a bunch and are going to get to roll a bunch of d6s to try and do mortal wounds to them. So it might cause some enemies to think twice about how they allocate wounds or how they, who they charge and how. So I don't know. We'll see. But it's cool. All right, let's take a look at the aforementioned Annihilators. We did get their stats. Actually, quite a bit of information about them. First off, they are essentially... Oh, I forgot to put the Bravery statistic in there, but they're Bravery 7. Their stats are exactly the same as all of the other Paladins, except for that 2+ save. All the other Paladins have a 3+ save. So there's an improvement right there. A big improvement, I think. They're going to be massive because of that. Their weapon stats: 3 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, -1 Ren, 2 damage. This is relatively in line with the other Paladins. It is a 1-inch range weapon, so you're not going to stack 6 or 9 of these guys together and attack in 2 ranks. You just don't have the reach. So the others, the Protectors, the Decimators, the Retributors, they all have different ranges. They all have a different number of attacks. They all hit 3s, have -1 Ren. And then their damage, Protectors and Decimators are 1, Retributors are 2, but they all have special abilities with those weapons, which so far we have not seen if the Meteoric Hammers have special abilities. But it is possible that they'll get them. However, their special abilities seem to be more powerful than those of other Paladins. The other ones have stuff like the Protectors are, get a -1 to hit from missile weapons, and the Retributors do mortal wounds with I think 6s to hit, or things like that. They've all got special abilities, but man, the Annihilators have some good ones. So let's take a look at those. First, we've got Blazing Impact, which is probably the coolest ability they have. When unit is set up on the battlefield for the first time, and so obviously this is from Deep Strike. I guess you could. It only hits enemy units, so setting them up on your own battle lines is not going to do anything. But if you set them up with the with their Deep Strike ability, then this ability will kick in. They will keep Scions of the Storm. In fact, the character, the Lord-Imperatant, specifically mentioned Scions of the Storm. So we know they're keeping that Allegiance ability. So basically, when these guys come in from Scions of the Storm, roll a die for each enemy unit within 10 inches. So typically that might be 1, maybe 2. You might be able to finagle it to hit 2 units, but on a 3+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds as you strike through lightning coming down. That's awesome. Then you can re-roll charge rolls for this unit if it was set up on the battlefield in the same turn. That's different than the other one. That other one said first time. So when they come in with Scions of the Storm, they will be able to re-roll charges, but also if they're using the Pendant of the Stormbringer or Translocation to move around the battlefield, they would still get the re-roll charge rolls. So that's very cool. We know the Pendant of the Stormbringer is going to remain. They referenced that in one of the articles. We don't know for sure whether or not the priests are going to keep Translocation or not. We'll have to wait and see. But if they do, which I don't see why they would make that big change, these guys will work very well with that. Their next one is Force of a Falling Star, which is a very impactful charge mortal wound dealer. It's similar to Ogre impact hits, but it's the Ogre monsters version, essentially. Pick an enemy unit within 1 inch after you finish a charge move. Roll a dice equal to the unmodified charge roll, but you're going to subtract 1 if there are only 2 models in the unit, or subtract 2 if there are only 1 model in the unit. So the fewer there are, the less impactful they are. For each 4+, the enemy unit will take 1 mortal wound. I'm pretty sure that that's exactly how the ogres work. It's per 4+ on the ogre monsters. Per 4+, they do 1 mortal wound. For regular ogres, it's just on a 6+, they deal a mortal wound. So again, these guys are going to be very impactful. They are going to be your Strike from the Heavens specialist, and we'll see when we get to Lord-Imperatant. There are some cool tricks you can do with them. But before we get there, let's talk about the Knight in Arcanum. This is probably going to be similar to the power level of the Knight in Cantor. We have a Lord Arcanum already, so this is the next level down. We have 2 reveals about these guys so far. Their built-in spell, Blaze of the Heavens, and a special ability they have called Indomitable Lore Seeker. Both of these are not anything super standout. The Blaze of the Heavens is okay, but I don't like that casting value of 7, especially for what you get. Their range on the spell is 18, but can be increased, as we'll see. You pick 1 enemy unit in range and visible to the caster, and they take D3 mortal wounds. However, you can add 2 inches to the range for each other friendly Thunderstrike unit wholly within 12 inches of the caster, so they do not count themselves. Likely this is going to result to either a 2 to 6 inch increase in range on average, because I can't see you having more than 3 units wholly within 12 inches. Maybe a guard unit, parked in front of them, maybe another hero or 2 that have the Thunderstrike keywords, but largely it's probably going to be just 1 or 2 others. If this model has the Prime Electrod's ability, which the Lord Arcanums all have, and the Knight in Cantor has, then this is inferior to Arcane Bolt. Unless you really, really need those extra inches on your casting range. Otherwise, you're better off casting Arcane Bolt with those Prime Electrodes. But we don't know whether or not they're keeping that ability. Or getting that ability, I should say. The other ability we do know they have is going to be a very niche ability. That's the Indomitable Lore Seekers. Predatory endless spells cannot pass across this unit finish a move within 3 inches of this unit. The new endless spell rules do seem to be making endless spells more impactful. So you'll probably see lots of Geminids on the board. So this might be relevant. But still seems a little underwhelming and, like I said, niche. This is going to require you to park this guy in front of vulnerable units. Now, you might be able to, in some circumstances, move him reactively to get in the way of a predatory endless spell and keep it from hitting an important unit or going someplace specific you don't want it to be. But I just don't see this again, especially if you're going to have to pay a premium for this ability. If this guy or girl is approximately the same point value as a Knight and Cantor, the automatically dispelling a spell is probably better than being able to stop endless spells. So we'll have to wait and see what we get. But let's go ahead and go look at the breakout star. This guy is amazing. He will be in many a competitive Stormcast list. He's got amazing stats, amazing abilities. So let's take a look at it. Like I said, a truly impressive new character. He has a lot to going on for him. He has similar stats to all Stormcast characters, except he has the wounds equal to most of their mounted models. So this is like a Lord Celestin on Dracoth, the Lord Arcanum on Griff Charger. They all have 7 wounds. But this guy on foot has 7 wounds. Maybe that's because he's being accompanied by a Griffhound who essentially counts as part of him. They are considered a single model, so that might be it. He has a solid shooting attack. It's D6 attacks, 18 inches, D6 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 damage. It's nothing overwhelming, but it could do some work. But that's really not the main show. He does also have pretty solid attacks if he is sucked into combat. 4 Blessed Hammer shots, 3s, -1, 2 damage. That's pretty good. Better than a lot of the heroes, actually. And then his Griffhound has 4 attacks, 3s and 4s, 1 damage, no rend. But it's his abilities that are what you take this guy for. He has 2 abilities on his War Scroll. 1, Distinguished Leader. Once per turn, use a command ability for free. That's it. Once per turn. Not per round, per turn. So your phase and enemy's phase. That's going to be awesome because there are a lot of cool new command abilities coming. They've been changed up. You're going to get lots more command points. But because of this guy, you essentially are getting 2 extra command points per turn. That's bonkers good, in my opinion. And then you've got Guided by Lightning. Once per turn, not once per game, which I would have assumed with how cool this ability is. Once per turn, you pick 1 friendly Thunderstrike unit with a wounds characteristic of 3 or less, and when you use Signs of the Storm Allegiance ability, you can set them up within 7 or more than 7 inches from the enemy instead of 9, making you now have a 50-50 chance of making a charge out of Deep Strike. And when you combine that with the Annihilator's built-in ability to reroll their charges, super good. Then if you, assuming this, I can't imagine they're going to get rid of any of the named characters. So if you want to play Hammers of Sigmar and take Gavriel Sureheart, you could drop him down with whatever Thunderstrike unit is coming in, and now suddenly they have you use his command ability and they have a 4-inch charge, and if it's the Annihilators, a 4-inch re-rollable charge. So man, this is a good ability. And he can use it every turn. So that actually incentivizes you to bring your forces in slower, to just, bring them in one or two at a time, and just kind of have that reserve force that over the first few rounds, you can kind of drop them in where they're needed, knowing they have a pretty good chance of making a charge and making your enemy really think about, how am I going to screen out those guys who can make a 7-inch charge? I cannot wait to have this guy in the field. I think he's going to be an amazing addition to the Stormcast army. And you probably aren't going to see Lord Celestants on the battlefield anymore, unless they're a named Lord Celestant, or they do something to rejigger the Lord Celestants, to make them a worthwhile frontline, fighter hero. Because right now they don't do a lot. Having to be in combat to hand out their plus to hit, it just makes them kind of like, there are way better heroes to choose, and we have a new one. But that's my thoughts on the Stormcast and the rules previews we've gotten with them. Now, there have been a lot of rules, 3rd edition rules, sneak peeks, so I will be talking about those in the next couple of videos. The first of which should come out Saturday, if all goes well, possibly Sunday, but I'm aiming for Saturday. And the first one will look at just some of the general abilities, and then that will be followed up with the spells and prayers one, and some of the rules we're seeing around that. But let me know what you guys think about the new Stormcast, the new rules we're seeing, the new characters. Are you a Stormcast player? And if so, would you include any or all of these units? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you would, please share with a friend. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.